The SDGs implementation in the built environment also means the active involvement of people and a specific focus on education. Chrisna Du Plessis is head of architecture and chair of the School of the Built Environment for the University of Pretoria in South Africa, and member of the Beyond 2020 International Advisory Board. You have written a book with the title Designing for Hope. How do you think humans can have a positive impact in the transformation journey towards a sustainable built environment?
Well, I think humans have to learn to work with nature, and we can see where people are starting to do that in things like regenerative agriculture, and there's examples of people all over the world who are reforesting and restoring natural ecosystems by using the way that nature works and not trying to impose something on it. So it's possible for us to restore what we have done, but I also think it's possible for us to envision new ways of being and doing that can get us out of the mess that we are in. And that's the challenge now, is to think about what these new ways of being is, and then how that lead to new ways of doing.
A sustainable built environment requires new value systems, new knowledge, and a new set of skills, which among others is promoted by the UN SDGs. How should we educate the architects, designers, engineers, and practitioners of tomorrow?
I think that what we need to start focusing on is a bit of the soft skills. We tend to, in these professions, focus on the hard skills, on the technology, or on the creative skills in terms of design. But we also need to start training them to engage with people. How do you facilitate? How do you bring different perspectives together in a way that is where the sum is better than the parts, where we incorporate everybody's concerns, but it creates something that you could not have determined from how people were thinking of when they each come in with their own agenda. And I also think it is about getting them to work together, to be more collaborative instead of working in these professional silos. Our professions have, over the years, really generated these kind of silos where they have set up systems that says an architect can do this, and only an architect is allowed to do this, and only an engineer is allowed to do that, or only a landscape architect is allowed to do that. And the world doesn't work that way. I think if we start educating our students in these professions to think much broader, to think outside these boxes of what they are told an architect or an engineer or a planner is supposed to do or supposed to be, they start getting empathy for what other people are doing, and they also start opening themselves up to work with non-traditional built environment professionals like ecologists and psychologists and movement specialists and transport engineers, etc. And I think that the third thing is that we need to move away from the idea of particularly architecture of the architect as the person who has all the answers, who come up with this grand vision and everybody else now has to jump in and do it, and start working towards how do we teach people to co-create, to come up with solutions together, and to come up with the design of the brief and of the problem itself. And not just jump in and think, oh yes, I know what the problem is, but I'm really trying to find out what is the real issue, what is the feeling around what needs to be resolved, and how does this fit into a much larger context and not just the project itself.
Do you think that the needs and wishes of people in the emerging economies are heard in the international debate? May the World Sustainable Built Environment Conference help to give them a voice?
It's a difficult one to answer, because I think in many ways the needs are heard in the sense that they drive the agenda. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, it's very much about the needs of the people in emerging economies and not so much about the needs of the people in the developed world. And I think there's maybe an overemphasis on that divide between the developing world and the developed world. And if we look at where the world is going in terms of climate change, in terms of biodiversity loss, economic changes, our political landscape that is changing, is those divisions between developing and developed is starting to become much smaller. And what we need to now focus on is not how do we divide each other and hear different voices, but to talk about our common problems and how we can together address this. But having said that, it's easier for people from the developed world to participate in this discussion because they have the money to go to places, they've got the technologies to get involved. They usually come with the kind of backgrounds that support them. And I think that is where the World Sustainable Building can actually make a difference. And the first one that was held in Scandinavia in, I think, 2002 in Oslo, there was a decision made by the then conference board to give 100 scholarships to scholars from developing countries, both postgraduate students and academics, as well as people who are from NGOs or communities, to come and attend the conference itself, just to level that playing field a little bit so that they can get in the room to discuss about what is our common problem.